Today we're going to talk about one of the most bizarre comps I think I've ever seen. It's from Core in their game against Fnatic here on Corrode, a game that they would ultimately lose. But this is the comp, right? Just admire it in all of its beauty. Look at that thing. Look at it. It's double smokes, okay, fairly normal, though one of the smokes is a brimstone, which we'll come to in a second. No duelist, no sentinel, triple initiator. Now, you know what's funny about this is, I have actually been saying that, you know, I'd like to see someone run triple initiator like BBL are doing on Ascent. I would like to see someone run triple initiator on Corrode. I did not picture this, though, to be the rest of the comp. I was thinking more, you know, like solo smokes, neon, triple initiator, and see what you can do, right? I was not picturing this. Obviously, this comp is a whole sort of mess. Now, we're actually going to pick up this game at 8-6. The thing is, KC actually won the defense half 8-4. Now, Corrode obviously is a somewhat, you know, defense-sided map, and it seems like with a lot of comps, even without playing a Sentinel necessarily, you can have a successful defense side on Corrode. But it's the attack side that I think is more interesting, because how on earth do you attack with a comp that has no duelist, right? And has a ton of util to potentially set up a duelist, but you don't have it. You also have a brimstone instead of like a viper, and that's the thing in this kind of comp, right? We're going to be poking, we're going to be prodding, we're going to be defaulting a lot, you would think. You know, you're going to be looking around the map. Why not play a viper here, who we already know is pretty good on this map, but would also give you that ability potentially, you know, to lurk into certain areas, to, you know, say, I'm just going to put this viper wall across B, you know, and we're going to threaten this lurk up, and, you know, if you're not there, then that's going to be a threat to you, right? Yeah, I don't know why, and they really didn't get a lot from this brim. There was like a couple like brim ults that they did on A that were pretty good, you know, where you can just like fully like draw a circle in here. Let's just watch this round, which is the anti-bonus round, right? And this is like a disaster of a round. So this is like the round that, you know, we need to win. It starts off with that, right? Which is a great little bait and switch here from Kayak, right? He beats the dart timing. He gets ahead of it. The dart reveals crashies. It's a great bait. It's a great little start for Fnatic there. You know, they start off pretty well. Then, I mean, this is what happens next. They then come and group up towards B. And this is the thing that perplexed me so much, because you're thinking, you're playing double smokes, triple initiator. Surely you're going to use that to take mid, right? We're gonna be fighting mid. We're gonna win this mid fight. We're gonna suppress you and reveal you. Instead, KC did do a lot of this, where we're grouping up, and of course they're gonna trip the wall here, and then come back. But then they're gonna like flash and smoke as if they were actually about to do this exec. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, if they would have tried this, they would have been obliterated. So they don't go for it, luckily, like thankfully they decide not to do that, because obviously that would be a terrible, terrible idea. But then they also get revealed by a Fade Haunt walking back, and it kind of reveals all of them that, yeah, it's kind of like everyone there. So now Boaster is able to push up, and now they come back to mid and get absolutely destroyed.
Crashies on the line, he's gonna take the next of those players. KC walking into trouble, not much health left on the remaining.
So again, here's the thing with this comp, right? What are you thinking about when you've got this comp? Well, you're thinking, well, we've got more util than everyone else. Which again is why I think that the brim doesn't, I mean, look, I just don't think it makes sense in this comp, because again, like the rest of your comp, you think, well, we've got a ton of refreshable utility, we're gonna just out-util you. Right, so then why are we playing Brim instead of like a Viper who also leans into that theory, right? That we could play slow and we'll eventually win that kind of World War I-esque battle with you. Instead, they end up running into mid here. You know, don't put any smokes down despite the fact that they do have them. Don't use any util, you know, at all for this kind of mid fight. Still don't put any smokes down. Still don't think about doing anything. End up in a 5v2 and obviously are going to end up losing this round eventually. And this was worrying. What is interesting about this game, though, is KC are going to win enough rounds here to actually take us to OT, right? It wasn't a complete disaster, and so despite this one looking awful, now let's take a look at a round that actually worked and is how you would expect this kind of comp to be played. So, let's come to the next full gun round, which is off a timeout, and as I say, this is a round that worked and was really, really good by KC, and this is how you would expect the comp to be played. Right, so obviously we're getting util going back and forth. We've smoked mid, we KO knife mid. We've got two players defaulting towards A, we've got two players defaulting towards B, and Fnatic just here in mid checking potentially for any push out. Right, and what they're going to do is they're going to send the drone in towards A, and they're going to try and trip this wall. Right, so we're creating pressure here on A. right? We're shock darting here as well to destroy some thorns. We're going to try and trip this wall. We're going to try and get rid of this vice stuff. And whilst that's going on, we've put a brim smoke here and a fade haunt here, right? So we're creating pressure on both extremities of the map. And what ends up happening here is that Kayak tries to go for a little info peek and gets punished. And now you're in a perfect spot, and they trip the wall at the same time, right? So we're only 20 seconds into the round, and we've achieved a lot, right? We've taken B main now and got a kill, and we've also got rid of a lot of Vice util on A and created some pressure here, right? So it's very tough for Fnatic now, because as you can see, all eyes now are on both mains, right? There isn't a single eye in mid. So this is really good by KC, right? And now that they've kind of achieved, you know, some of those goals towards the two mains, now instead we're going to group up and we're going to come towards mid, right? So we're still keeping people here out towards the mains, just checking for any kind of re-clear or anything like that, right? Try and punish some of that. But now we're coming into mid, we're smoking it off, and we're seeing if we can, you know, also create some pressure here. And now you see Fnatic, you know, again, we get the smoke coming in here with the KO knife as well. Now they start to drift in towards mid. And again, it's a good call by KC here. They're actually not going to go and actually take mid, because they know that Fnatic potentially are likely to, you know, try and run a crunch here and get the numbers back in time. They're now just going to go towards A. So this is a really, really nice round by KC.
Really there to back it up, and instead, no, they go towards A. Fnatic respond to the pressure of just a single knife and smoke. And when it's bringing them closer towards this A side where the spike's going.
Exactly, and when I say stack, I meant utility, but there's no players to play off it now. Fnatic gutting the mid portion just to make sure that they're in the best possible position for a retake as they sit a man down. That's the equalizer. Pyrol taken off his feet. Crashies has his number. Poster now by his side with the flank closing in. KC will begin to search for that advantage again.
Yeah, but Zugetsu's all alone in main, and he's trying to run Scarpa towards the site, but he's playing dangerously.
Still dwindling around, but here is Kron. The onus put on him here. Quick trade. Headshot maybe over-delivering in that situation because it's kept it at 3-on-3. Elevated position Sugetsu. No more to be done from him in the round. And we're still at an even man count as it continues to draw forwards. Double stack of players for KC. Walking in with the Odin Alpha at the back of the pack.
So yeah, really, really cool round from KC overall there. And as I said, as they start drifting towards A, they then also run this as a B fake, right? Because of course at this point, they could be drifting to either side. There's no real tell here for Fnatic which side they've gone because they've been defaulting on both sides. So this Fade Prowler coming in and a Fade Haunt here as well. I mean, you know, they don't even really need to sell it also with a smoke, but they also have a good idea that Fnatic are going to come and re-aggro over towards B. And it's just a really nice round, right? Yeah, okay, Pyrol dies and maybe that's, you know, not ideal in that scenario, but overall just a really, really nice round from KC. You know, this is what you're going to struggle with, right? You're going to struggle with getting into these areas, right? This is the part, this is kind of the hard part, but you know, you see how they managed to get there, you know, through this kind of round with the double defaults and stuff like that. Now, as we get into the post plant, you know, again, you're thinking, well, what's your comp good at, right? You've got more util than, you know, your opponents in general. That's what you're hoping for, right, in this kind of comp. And this personally is why I have always thought in triple initiator comps, Gecko is really good. Right, Gecko is really good in triple initiator, and I was kind of a bit sad to not see him in this comp, even though, you know, the Geckos I've seen so far on Corrode haven't been amazing. But one reason I love Gecko in triple initiator is because if you're going triple initiator, you are leaning into that theory, right, of we're going to have more util than you, and obviously Gecko fits into that very well, right, in terms of the refreshable util. But also Gecko, his util on his own, right, maybe isn't the strongest, but it combos with other util really well. Well, again, in triple initiator, you've got a lot of that util to combo with. Right, so personally I would like to have seen a Gecko in any triple initiator comp because I think it suits the theory of that comp quite well, but as we see from there, KC a really nice round. Now let's come to the very next round though, which we see this comp, there are certain things that it is going to struggle against, and one of them is a Viper's Pit, right? Because Fnatic in this round, it looks similar, right? The map looks similar to the start of last round in terms of, you know, Fade Brim over here towards B, these two towards A, right? It looks very similar in terms of how they start, but they got this Viper's Pit here on B this time, Fnatic, and that just makes it pretty hard for this comp because you don't really have a great tool for getting past that Viper's Pit, and you don't want to just, you know, 5-stack run out here. Essentially, they are being locked into A here with all of this Vice setup and the Yoru. Now, they get maybe a little bit fortunate here. Kayak plays this, you know, quite bravely, I would say, you know, and this maybe is a little bit fortunate. Because, I mean, how that is a kill, I don't even know. And what's funny is the X is actually where he TPs. So I don't know what happened on the game here. It literally must have been frame perfect, that kill. But they managed to get the first kill from Kayak being a little bit brave. But you see now KC are going to, even though they're in a 5v4, they're still going to run into this problem of, there's all this Vice set up on A, and Alfia also has his ult here on Vice, but they can't go B. You know, you're just going to see them mill about here and look a little bit confused, right? So, like for instance, we send in that Omen flash with a dart here, and Alfia gets scanned by the start. He's revealed in this spot, but there ain't nothing you can do about it. Right, like, who's that Omen flash for? Who's going to potentially scale off that Omen flash? Right, no one. Now we're down to 30 seconds. And it's 30 seconds. And as they cross this sheer wall, you know, they're now going to get Vice ulted as well. So now there's 23 seconds of getting Vice ulted. What's funny about this, though, is that KC still managed to win this round.
The ultimate come through, the Steel Garden. This is a real problem for KC. The firepower not there to support the push.
Preemptive play made, and with 15 seconds, KC have to scale into the A site, the orbital strike to cut off most of the ground, but it's space that they can't themselves flood into. Spike needs to hit the deck, still not committed. Finally, it's a last gasp opportunity, which Crashies cannot deny. The kill's still in place for Fnatic, but KC have numbers.
That they do, only one player better, and still Kron to come through, but he's flanking.
Alpha an elbow. Completely unchecked here, vigilant round the corner, collecting the first quick trade. Sadak has his number, as do KC. He will set up the contact, the captain. It's Aves to swing, but it has to be through the molly. Disciplined.
Now, here we do see some value from that Brim ult, right? This is a round where they are, again, just going to end up Brim ulting the side here, KC. And that obviously is going to clear out all of this, which is going to give them just the space to plant. But Fnatic are also going to prey victim to something that they often, you know, make teams prey victim to, which is, you know, people just taking swings and trying to take fights. In these moments, things get chaotic, and you will often find defenders then try and, you know, just like sprint in to stop the spike. And it often does end up looking like that, where, you know, the attackers are just all defending the spike, and so they're able to, you know, just about do enough. Well, not great by KC, but they do manage to scrape out a round. Now, is that a good round from KC? I personally would say no, but it did work. Now, one thing I expected a lot more from KC than we saw in this game was a lot of mid-fighting, but they finally kind of did do it in round 21.
More assists from the Fade player here. The scaling has been an issue so far in some of these attack rounds. Take the most out of the tools that they've got. Fight taken from Fnatic in mid. KC quickly again moving into this space.
Yeah, they are. Kayak, though, on the hunt, and he just backs away.
Want to bite the bullet, risk the potential of going down. He knows what it means. The whole first half, he struggled in those first fights, but now, new sense of confidence about his being.
Yeah, but he's heard everything that's going on in A-Line right now.
And that's why Chronicle has arrived on the scene with him beneath the arch.
Comes in at the right time. Sadak denied any lines of sight towards top mid where Kron could be. Look at Crashies.
Walking out, Kayak, first blood on the round, shut down quickly, so Getsu on the swivel. Viper wall up, Kron caught with his hands in his pockets, two players peeking, still gets out beyond the half wall, and Crashies taking down Martin. It's a massacre in middle.
Okay, so as I said, this is something that I expected KC to do quite a lot, and the reason for that is because if you can get this initial mid space, which they do here by stim beaconing, and this is something that I thought we would see a lot, right? Stim beacon off the rip to run into mid. They do it here, but I thought they would do it a lot more than they actually end up doing. Because, you know, if you can take that initial space mid, these mid fights, you know, can just get a bit chaotic and a bit crazy and can just be a bit coin flippy, right? In terms of, you know, spam through smokes, in terms of, you know, just looking the right way at the right time. Like, you know, that can happen, right, in these mid fights. And we actually do see that in this round. And I thought that, honestly, with this comp, you are better off just, like, taking a coin flip, right, and saying, sometimes we're going to win this fight and sometimes we're not. And, you know, that's fine. And we'll hope to get on top of it, right? But we see here multiple fights where it's, like, you know, a potential problem. And again, because they had gone quiet before when Fnatic had come for this mid push, right, like, you know, as we saw in kind of the best round that they ran, you know, pausing here in mid, I think, is quite a nice call from them. But we see, you know, Kayak, they do go for that mid aggro, but it gets traded, right? Now we see a chance where Aves possibly could kill Chronicle there. Pyro could also possibly kill Chronicle there. It doesn't quite happen for them, but if it does, maybe this is a very different round, right? Because Chronicle ends up doing that, right? And we end up in a 1v2. But this is something that I thought, you know, surely KC are going to lean in you know, to getting into this position a lot, because then they can go silent like they did and either threaten, you know, and try and fight a reclear, or then, you know, they can try and threaten and do a split either way, right? And try and, you know, create some chaos in the rotates for Fnatic and make it more difficult for them. As it happened, this was kind of one of the fewer times that they did, you know, go for this kind of strategy. But as we see, it didn't quite work, and KC would ultimately end up losing this game. But overall on this comp, is it the worst comp that I've ever seen? No. No, I have seen worse comps. It's a very crazy comp, and I do think that, you know, I personally, if I was playing something like this, you know, this probably would be a Viper instead of a Brim. I think that makes more sense for you. As I mentioned before, I think a Gecko in triple initiated makes more sense generally, and also in some circumstances might help you get the spike down, which is kind of crucial for you. So that is personally what I would do. Could this comp kind of work? Long term, probably not, but it was worth a try.